Beautiful. We're on week 30 from Rays of the One Night, weekly commentaries on the Bible and the Bhagavad Gita. And Swamiji brings up this topic for all of us. Do we need a guru? So we'll read this now, and feel free to close your eyes or just visualize these words going deep in your inner self. Truth is one and eternal. Realize oneness with it in your deathless self within. The following commentary is based on the teachings of Paramhansa Yogananda. Many people scoff at the idea of having a guru. True to human nature, generally, they make a virtue of their scoffing. I am responsible for what I do, they announce, responsible for my mistakes as well as for my victories. What would I ever learn if I handed over my development to someone else? To depend on another for guidance would be an act of spiritual cowardice. It would be understandable for someone gifted with some trivial ability, for instance with words, to insist on doing their crossword puzzle without letting anyone else help them. But supposing, even in such trivial matters, they had no such gift, what virtue would there be in refusing to learn? For that matter, moreover, where do our gifts come from? They are not a native ability. Still, crossword puzzles are hardly an important challenge. What if a person wanted to do something daring, to climb a cliff, for instance, but refused to study the art of mountain climbing? They would climb at the risk of their life. And how much more is risked than physical life in the great adventure of the divine search, where the risk is to salvation itself? Where is the sacrifice in seeking guidance? Even a mountain guide wouldn't presume to do one's climbing for one. Their purpose would be only to help the neophyte to climb safely. To have a wise guru is not a sign of weakness, but of plain common sense. All the saints, aware as they are of the hazards of this adventure, agree on the importance of having a guide or a guru. And these are the heroes speaking, not cowards or spiritual weaklings. Jesus emphasized the importance of having a teacher by asking John to baptize him. In the Gospel of St. Matthew, chapter 3, we read of his coming to John. Thus Jesus said to John, "It becometh us to fulfill all righteousness." In the Bhagavad Gita, the 4th chapter, Sri Krishna says, "Open thyself to those who have attained wisdom. They will be thy teachers. Ask questions of them, both verbally and mentally. Serve them faithfully and with devotion." How is the devotee to recognize one who has attained wisdom? The Bhagavad Gita gives us this inspiring description of the sage. By this sign he is known, being of equal grace to comrades, friends, chance-comers, strangers, lovers, enemies, aliens, and kinsmen, loving all alike, evil or good. Thus, through Holy Scripture, God has spoken to mankind. Oh,
Oh, oh.
what a reading.
Beautiful, isn't it?
Yes.
And as simple as it sounds, particularly for uh, people that are here with a guru and are coming here because of a guru. Um, and it's kind of a nice way to explore or delve into, the importance of always attuning to a guru and seeing, where does it fit and where can we bring the guru more into a part of our lives. So I'm going to start with a reading from Whispers of Eternity. And this is a prayer demand to uh, bless me that I may perceive thee through the windows of all activities. Bless me that I may perceive thee through the window of all joyous activities. Look upon me and cheer me always as I engage in my daily duties. Let my every action, whether waking, sleeping, or dreaming, be sprayed by the fountain of thy presence. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. It was an interesting thought that I had the other day. I was spurred on by something that Swami spoke about in the New Path, but it was kind of interesting, and I've never really looked at it this way. But as we evolve and we move into uh, this new age, we've moved from the cave yogi uh, to the householder and the being present and breaking down those barriers. And then Swami said something very subtle, and it set my imagination, and I don't know where it is, but it's an interesting thought that ultimately Yogananda suggested quite firmly that we live in community, because when we live in community, we are around like-minded people. And then it got me thinking was, if we look at the population and how much the population of the world is also growing during this time, there would only be a limited number of caves that cave yogis could go to. And essentially, when we found our cave, I'm sure we wouldn't be the only ones.
Mm-hmm.
So therefore, we'd kind of have to learn to live in community, because we'd probably be sharing the cave. And it was kind of anyone that's been to Babaji's cave and meditated in there, there's kind of a line to get into that cave.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So, you can see even through evolving in this evolution that we definitely are growing and experiencing this divine right through being a community and growing in that way that we can experience it. And then when you think back, and I think of two distinct things that we've probably all gone through. One is school. And it's very interesting, isn't it? We grow up through our family and our family's values, and they are instilled on us. And then we grow up through society of where we live, family, cultural values. And then we go to school, and you could probably pick out one teacher that was probably a few, but if you picked out one teacher that was kind of an influence on you, that same teacher might be a popular teacher, but quite often it's just someone that was able to teach you or relate to you in a certain way. And if I spoke to all my friends that went to school, they'd probably not say the same teacher. They probably all had different teachers that related to them, because they probably more aligned within past lives and experiences within our family values that we've come in on, and where we've been brought into, um, they've related in a certain way. And I was in my very younger years, I played national water polo, and I had a coach, and it just made me laugh, because I was thinking that my coach at a national level, you had different levels of coaching, but the national coach was a study. He was a very astute person, and every month he would study other countries and how they played. And of course, each country had their own, um, you know, right down to cultures. They had their own motivations to play different sports. They would have even body shape and size is very different to each different country. So therefore, the way you played would be quite different.
Hmm.
And I was only young at the time, but every month we would be trained or brought into this different way of playing or training from a national level of playing. And as you can imagine, it became quite confusing because you'd be like, well, that kind of works, but it didn't work. And then you'd be strictly trained at that national level to train in a certain way. And in the end, it was kind of quite confusing. But
Hmm.
out of all that, you kind of picked what worked for you and what didn't work for you. So it was kind of that inward motion. And it reminded me of having a guru. And it what the guru does is not necessarily um, teach, they teach truth, but they teach it in that diamond fashion that that truth can be seen through different lights and different eyes because we all come from different experiences. And the idea of those different rays of light that come through and share on individually each one of us is that where it's basically taking away and unlearning what we've been brought up. We're taking away that coat of the family dynamics that were brought into what we were and how we were meant to live and how we were meant to think and how we were meant to do all these things. Then it's meant to unlearn the society's cultural elements to what you're meant to believe and how you're meant to believe and what so it's kind of unlearning all those things that you can see your truth. And it's an interesting climb from where we were a few weeks ago, and each one of these lessons bring you Woodley, it's basically getting back to that image of who are we, what are we, and we're all a creation of God. But we're being brought up through all these things. And that's why a guru is so important, is that they reflect and really show us from an individual perspective who we really are. They're helping us find, they're the ultimate life coach of telling us who we are, taking away all the Maya, all the delusion, all those past lives. And they help us see individually who we are. And I was speaking to someone the other day. It was an aspect of the new path that I was reading, and it was where Swami was speaking about a relationship that he had and the important lesson that he learned, and that was to trust, not trust entirely anyone on this planet. There's only one person that you can trust, and that was God and the Guru. And
Hmm.
it was such a subtle thing because it really wasn't talking about spirituality, it was talking about a relationship. And as I was sharing this, someone said to me, wow, isn't it amazing how you can read the same book and get something that relates to you in a different way?
Hmm.
Someone else might have read that at a different time and just literally brushed over that two paragraphs or half a paragraph of
Hmm.
where it is. And each day we're evolving. And each day, if you look at your world, you're either adding layers. We always talk about, are you going inward and upward or downward and outwards? Are we adding layers to our life? Are we playing more a part in that role of the acting role in life? Or are we taking away those layers? Are we taking off the character that we've been born in to do? And really, the guru is that director, the director of our life that can really get to the crux of where we are and what we need to be and give us the teachings that we require individually. Now, isn't that incredible that there is a guru who can do that? When you think about how many people that our Yogananda touches in this world, but the teachings and the truth that he teaches individually speak to every single person. And then we have the ability to do that because we have that ability to pass on those teachings. We have that ability to be able to unlearn and seek the truth and then talk the truth and grow those and have an impact on what's around us. So the guru who, if you know, even as Yogananda he came in, but he still had to seek a guru. Jesus, through that reading, showed that he had to get baptized to show that there was always someone higher. And when we talk about community, you know, Swami said, always spend time and be around people that have been on the path a bit longer than you and be able to teach you those little teachings and be those ways. And as um, Swami he used to say, the more you know, the more you don't know. And he used to uh, be so graceful in the way he said. He was beautiful in the way he talked. He said, I now don't come into this world thinking I know better and I know this and I learn this and I've got this. He said, every opportunity when you get yourself out of the road is an opportunity to learn. Whether it's a child that comes to talk to you and have a play, whether it's someone that's been around and even from a fun perspective, there was a conversation that we're involved with and it was around thinking, well, really, that child that comes into this community could have been someone who was in the community or one of the founding members of Ananda and that's now come back. And so this cycle of being open and learning and having a guru that allows us to be in touch with our truth self, be in touch with truth and then be able to move and progress in the way that we're going. And it was such an interesting alignment with the affirmation is really understanding that we're all that. And if we want to love God and grow ourselves, we have to love that God in everyone and and be a part of that reflection that that guru brings to get rid of this delusion.
That was great, by the way. And also, what an interesting topic that have been brought together this week.
Hmm.
Non-injury, which is one of our yamas and niyamas, as well as do we need a guru? So I was thinking, as you were sharing a little bit towards the end, I got a little bit thinking ahead slightly about, well, what could we say in response to this? And one of the things that came to mind was, do we need a guru? Why, yes. And now. But what do we need to give guru to be able to achieve this state of non-injury? And could we do it without Guruji? And if you think about life before having a guru, because each of you here, we're all disciples, so I just invite you to think a bit. What was your heart and mind busy thinking and doing before Guruji? And what the difference is now in your life that you have Guruji. It's like an honor of a soul who's one with God, inviting us to live in his consciousness of unity. And what could we be doing better than to try to devote ourselves completely to that pure consciousness so that our minds and our hearts can live in a state of ahimsa? And why is that so important? And why do we need Guruji to help us? Is it's mastery. That is a mastery over the mind and over the heart and any attachments, thoughts, desires that have any downward pull. That means every single bit of your energy is going inward and upward. That means everything is, if you know, we have the negative and positive poles, everything is vibrating in the positive direction. And you think, how would that be humanly possible? Does anyone feel like they could do that without a guru? Does anyone think they need the guru for that?
Probably before you met the guru.
You're not, they didn't see you. Um, exactly. You didn't realize perhaps prior to his presence in your life how important he was. But that's one of the things that Master said is when you learn, this is really interesting, by the way, when you learn to fully respect the mother and the father that God gave you, your guru can come to you fully. It's so important for our heart to be humble and open to the fact that we are loved, but we are here to learn and we cannot blame anybody else. You know how a lot of us hold on to something, to other generations? It's a karma. That's your genetic karma being passed down in the spine through those vrittis. And when we allow ourselves the first example of non-injury to God's gifts, which in any soul's circumstance would be the mother and the father who birthed us into this world of Maya, then we can go forth into this relationship with the guru. And God made it so that we had to take those steps. All of us aren't perfect, perhaps, but isn't that an interesting thing to contemplate as well? We are given so many challenges, and are we there yet where we first think, thank you, God? Where we first say, I love you, God. This is a great lesson. Oh my gosh, you just knew I totally needed this one. Like, that's got to be the first thing we go to, not, oh, they're such an idiot. Oh, why did they do that? You know, blame, 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 blame. Yeah, or poor me. Or I'm terrible. I'm a terrible person. Even that is blocking guru. And I'm constantly reminding myself of that quote that we hear from Swamiji in The New Path, where he said, Master said to him, no more moods now, Walter, or how can you help anyone? Like, if we're a disciple of a great yoga master, we need to hurry up and be attuned because we have so much to do on this planet right now, and we shouldn't be giving up any of that energy to that negative pull. It's such an inspiring thing to go out this week with, right? If you can make everything in your body radiate positivity. And what can we be doing to make that something that is limitless? And we get to start this process every day when we wake up. I'm going to try this myself, is that moment when we're trying to wake up to go meditate, wake up to begin this beautiful day. How much resistance do we have in that moment? And then again, to sit and meditate. And then again, throughout our daily life, when we interact with each other and when we interact with animals, plants, this whole beautiful earth. But Lahiri said, every breath is an opportunity to change. And I invite you again to think, are you in those moments when you have a choice to do ahimsa or maybe a negative thought comes out of you? One thing to keep in mind, Sister Gyanamata said, it's okay if the first thought isn't so good because it's more of a radio wave that you're receiving. But the one that comes after that is what matters. So it's the moment where you catch it and then you act on it. And why do we have a guru for this age of energy? Because he taught us our willpower is really important for this, and our devotion is really important as well. Because both of them are the powerful forces that allow us to make a better decision. And the Kriya Yoga path that we've all been extremely blessed. You just talk to Sweta for like 5 minutes and you'll start crying with tears of joy that we have Kriya in this lifetime. But that is our gift. That's going to help us make better choices. But it's also to attune to Guruji because he is the key. And we can never stop forgetting that that is his love in each of those hard bits. Every time something comes into your life, you get an opportunity to rise. And what is that more than an act of love? It is so hard sometimes to see that love in the hardest bits that we have in our weeks and days and months and years. But if you look back, as Amrita was sharing, Ashwin, any of you have shared, you look back, and Devi shared this week, the blog she wrote on the miracles. Go practice that gratitude, practice that reflection, and look for those moments of miracles and acts of love in your own life. Those are all Guruji's efforts to help you be free. And why do we forget that? Maybe we should be like elbowing each other a bit more. Don't forget, that's love. Don't blame yourself. It's God's love. And sometimes God says, right now, especially as you were discussing earlier, we need to challenge ourselves right now because we have bigger tests coming. So I'm going to push you. Just out of curiosity, who here is feeling a bit pushed in the world right now? Hmm. This universe is giving us extra lessons, but it's because we need to get strong. It's sort of like, okay, I'm gonna go run a marathon soon. I better get working out. I better get practicing. I better run faster and harder and get better shoes. These are all things we need to be doing to prepare. And so Guruji's like, you guys, I gotta get you more ready. We gotta train harder. Like you brought in the coach earlier. We need to train harder, but it's because I love and care about you and I want you to be free. And so we have to not forget that. That's where our willpower comes in and our 100% effort comes in. And if you think about it, that's the key is we just have to remember.
Mm.
So we have some songs for you and then I'll answer, well, maybe we'll just have a few minutes afterwards so we can go through those really amazing questions and thoughts. But this is our first song